Are you allowed to record an audiobook of someone else's novel and put it on Audible for you to make money? Let's break this down with everybody's favorite IP and entertainment lawyer, Tony.
My name is Tony Iliakostas. I'm an adjunct professor of entertainment law and IP at New York Law School, and I have an Instagram, YouTube, and TikTok account called The IP Professor that is dedicated to all things intellectual property.
Tony, are people allowed to read other authors' books as audiobooks on Audible without their permission? Because people have been telling me on my YouTube channel that they are. So talk to me about this from a legal perspective.
Of course. So first things first, no, that is not allowed. And I think that it's important to note that whoever writes a book owns a copyright. So the words, the arrangement, the character names, all of that is vested with the copyright owner of that specific asset. Obviously depends on the type of author you're talking about. If this is an author that works with one of the big foreign publishing, odds are that the publishing house, like, Simon & Schuster or Penguin, any of these big publishers are likely going to own the copyright to that work. If you're talking about more of like an indie author, again, odds are that it's because it's a lesser type of work. Not to say that they aren't valuable works, but it's not of the scale of, let's say, working with Big Four. Then that actually may be a situation where the author may own the copyright. It's going to be relative to what the publishing agreement is between the author and the publishing house. All that to say, there's a copyright at play with that specific work. You have to understand that the time, the effort, even the money that went into writing that book is the product, is basically what led to that copyright coming to full fruition. If someone were to read that author's book without asking for permission and repurpose it in an audiobook that was made available on Audible, and let's say that the Audible stream is backed by some type of ad revenue or something like that, that's a bit of a problem, because now at that point, the author isn't getting any royalty whatsoever. Even if it's not backed by ads, it's just a recitation of the book. Still a problem, because at the end of the day, the person reading the book is not the author, and it wasn't sanctioned or wasn't even approved, rather, by the author. So that becomes a whole quagmire, a whole issue, and the author can allege copyright infringement in a situation like that, mainly because what the infringer is engaging in is a violation of his public performance right. And if you look at the Copyright Act of 1976, 17 U.S.C. 102, there are 6 enumerated rights that are exclusive to each copyright owner. The public display right, the public reproduction right. One of the few is the public performance right. The public performance right means that if someone were to perform your work, whether that's an audiovisual work or anything that exhibits audiovisual, something audiovisual in nature, that's the kind of thing that would qualify as a violation of that public performance right, especially if the infringer never got permission from the original copyright owner. So the recourse at that point is, the copyright owner can send out a cease and desist, allege, hey, this is my copyrighted work, this is my copyright registration number, this is mine, you read my book, you publicly performed it on a platform, on a very vast platform like Audible or some other place where the audiobook would be made available. That is a violation of my rights. Take it down, or else I'm going to sue you for copyright infringement. And at that point, the infringer would have to comply with that request. And if they insist that they did nothing wrong, they pull the whole no copyright infringement intended, I exercise fair use, which is, if I had $1 for every time I heard that excuse, I would be a millionaire by now. But all that to say, if they flex that as their defense, now at that point, the author has a wide road to go ahead and pursue a copyright infringement claim and go after that infringer. So bottom line is, don't think that if you bought the book that gave you a license to go ahead and read it. That is not how the first sale doctrine works. That is not how copyright law, generally speaking, works. The right to that specific book, the you buying that book just specifically means that you have that right now to just read the book at your own leisure, and that's it. End of story. That does not mean that you can just go ahead freely read the book in public and think that you're going to be absolved of any liability. That is just not the case. And unfortunately, that's a myth that exists in the author space, that exists in so many other industries, but I think it's important to educate rather than to, or rather, kind of my whole thing is I rather inform rather than misinform about something like that.
And of course, we've had conversations about reading books in public, about reading books on YouTube. So check out those videos down below. Those are in the playlist for you as well. And if you've got questions on this, make sure you drop your questions here. And if you're not sure whether or not you have permission to read someone's book, we suggest getting a lawyer. They will guide you through the process and help you to make the proper contacts so that you do not have to stumble if this is something that you do want to pursue. Questions, drop those down below. And as always, you can reach out to Tony on his social medias. Tony, where can everybody find you?
You can find me on Instagram, YouTube, and TikTok at the IP Professor. And you can check out my entertainment law podcast called End Scene. New episodes drop every Friday on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen to podcasts.
Follow along because Tony's coming back for upcoming episodes on the legal side of publishing. And every single day we're dropping brand new videos to help you navigate the world of publishing to make this your most profitable year ever through your writing, publishing, and marketing endeavors. We'll see you in the upcoming episodes.